Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Well, good morning again, everyone. Thanks again for being here. So, we've been talking emotions this month. Yeah. And we're going to continue that conversation. And guess what we're talking about today? I give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count. Yes, we're going to talk about sadness this morning. Reverend Vaughn actually did the talk, so I could really sit down, but you get to hear me a little bit longer. And we're just going to go and explore. We're going to play a little bit. So, when we think about sadness, what comes to mind? Anybody? Crying, okay. So, sadness is a common thing. Everybody, at some point in their experience, in this thing called life, has sadness. And it can hit you at any time without any warning. You know, it could be something that happens after a breakup. It can be something that happens as a response to a loved one passing. It can be a circumstance of what's happening in the world. Like I know when I heard about the latest, and when I say latest, it just makes me sad, school shooting, because that would imply that there have been others, that this sadness came over me. And it was just like, oh my God. And then, you know, it expanded because it's like, what's happening in this world? There's just so much happening that is counter to one's happiness. There's so much happening counter to that which can lift us up, that which supports us. And this causes me sadness. It could be an event that happens. The other week I was in San Francisco and I was walking downtown San Francisco, and it was very sad because it's all boarded up and stores are closed, businesses are closed, people are in the doorways doing drugs. Young people, I was sad. So sadness happens. There's also the sadness that happens from watching a movie or hearing a song. Now, I'm really into that, you know, and oftentimes, like, my aunt was visiting, you know, I got very emotional depending on what it was that we were watching, and she kind of teased me about it, but it's okay. But, you know, there's that sadness that happens when you're watching a sad movie, and the next thing you know, you're crying. But it's all sadness. And it's all part of who we are. Now, it was interesting because I found this article that talked about the range of sadness. There are a lot of different ranges, you know, different points of sadness. So I'm going to tell you what those are right now. And they go from the least intense to the most intense. So the least intense would be disappointment. Okay? So that's on the end of the spectrum, least intense, disappointment. Discouragement. Being distraught. Resignation. Helplessness. So we're getting more intense now, right? Do you feel the intensity? Misery. Despair. Grief. Sorrow. Anguish. Anguish is the most intense. And even as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it, you know, in my body. And there's this range, and you can kind of feel as it gets stronger. And One of them that struck me is grief, because I feel like everyone in the room, everyone that I can see out on Zoom, has had this grief experience, and that grief associated with the loss of a loved one. And sometimes you just feel like you're just going to just fall out. At least that's how I feel. And so you can see the intensity. Now, the one thing that I want to make clear is that sadness and depression are not the same thing. Okay? Because you're sad doesn't mean you're depressed. Now, if you're depressed, it does mean you're sad. Just being clear here. So, what is sadness? Sadness is a regular part of life. But the thing is that it's not constant. It's going to shift. Sadness is a common reaction, so I want you to hear that it's common to any kind of upset or setback. Sadness can be interrupted by times of laughter and contentment. Yesterday I was getting my hair done, yes. And the young lady that does it, I love her dearly. And I could tell that something was wrong because she said, oh, you know, I'm like, how are you? And she says, oh, I'm okay. But I could tell by the way she was saying she was okay that there was something else going on. And so I said, okay, so what's going on? She said, my father died. And oh my God. You know, all I could do was get up and hug her. And, you know, we stood there for many moments as she just cried. And then as we moved through my appointment, there were times when it was just laughter. We were laughing about things. And so she was still feeling her sadness, but there was times of laughter, times of contentment. Sadness is an emotion that we know that involves negative thoughts, but they're not usually suicidal. Okay? So, negative, but not suicidal. This is a good thing. Depression, on the other hand, is a longer-term feeling of severe sadness. And typically what the experts are saying, if it lasts more than 2 weeks, where it's constant. And I even heard that they are saying that if you're, I guess, in a depression for so many months, that your insurance will now pay for because it's a medical condition. Depression has usually complicated causes, and a lot of them are connected with your genetics and biological components. Who knew? Depression can lead to significant weight change or sleep disruption. I remember when I was going to my grief support, this was after my father passed, there was a young lady that was in the support group, and I would say she was going through severe depression. Because there was one activity that we got to do was we brought in pictures of our loved ones, and she brought in a picture of she and her mother. And in the picture, she looked like she was probably 110 pounds. In the picture with her mom. Sitting in the room, however, she looked like she was probably more like 200 pounds. What had happened? That grief that she was feeling and was sustaining, because she said that, you know, before my mother passed away, I really cared about how I ate. I exercised. You know, but when my mother passed, I didn't care. so what she was doing was she was eating her feelings. And it manifests in great weight gain. I think that probably a lot of people have had this experience during COVID. Because I know, like, when I would go to the doctors, they would have you fill out a sheet. And one of the questions was, have you been depressed? Now, I wasn't going there. I wasn't going to a psychiatrist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I was just going to my regular general practitioner. But they were concerned because of the events that are happening in the world could cause depression. Depression can be mentally painful and life-altering. And if you find that you're in severe depression, it is time for you to get some help. Don't try to tackle it on your own. So that's depression. So there's a difference between sadness and depression. Okay? Now, we talk a lot about energy in this philosophy. And we talk about vibration, and we all know about vibration. We can have high vibration and we can have low vibration. A while back, I introduced a chart that showed this vibrational scale, from low vibration to high vibration. Reverend Pamela has shown this scale, and we've talked about it quite a bit. So where do you feel sadness falls on the vibrational scale? Low vibration, high vibration. Low vibration. Not a bad thing, however. Because sadness is one of those emotions that you can use to gain more insight into who you are. It's an emotion that can lift you up. It's an emotion, however, that you don't want to get up close and personal and be friends with and be besties with it. And, and some people might say, build a monument to it. It's an emotion that can pass. You can move through it. It doesn't have to stay with you. There are ways to manage sadness. And Reverend Bond gave us 50. Okay? We got 50 ways.
To leave your lover.
Yeah, 50 ways to leave your lover. Well, which can make you sad or not. Depending on the lover. So, the one thing I want us to think about in managing our sadness is using love to manage your sadness. And how does love show up? Well, Reverend Vaughn gave us 50 ways. I am not going to talk about all 50 of them. I am going to pull a few out, and we're going to just kind of focus on those. The first way that we can love ourselves through sadness is not feeling bad about feeling sad. Okay? Embrace the sadness. We live in a society that wants everybody to be upbeat. Oh, everybody has to be happy all the time. The reality of it, that's not true. We can't be that. And even there are times where people are smiling, but you know that they're sad. Sadness is one of those emotions that doesn't have to be mutually exclusive of others. You can be sad and happy at the same time, right? Has anybody had that experience? It's like, wow, you can be sad and angry at the same time. So sadness can accompany anyone, a whole lot of other emotions. So embrace the sadness. And behind that is to first acknowledge that you're sad. Some of us go through life like, oh no, I'm good. There's a phrase, and some of you know that this is not my favorite. It's all good. And part of the reasons why that's not my favorite is because oftentimes when people are saying it, they are feeling pain. They are feeling sadness. But they want to cover it over and by saying it's all good. But it's not. And you need to acknowledge that and deal with it. You want to embrace the sadness. I know there are times when sadness, I start feeling sad and I'm like, what, why am I sad? And then I have to look at, okay, so what happened that caused me to feel this way? And so that's a way of embracing your sadness, of understanding, of looking at your sadness square in the eyes. In the video that we looked at right before the talk, Sam Smith talks about he had to sit with his sorrow. So he had to be in it. You have to be in it. There's that phrase, you have to be in it to win it. And so, you got to be in it because that's the only way you're going to move through it. The thing about not embracing it and not allowing yourself to be in it is you can't heal. You just can't. We got to embrace it. Now, oftentimes, people don't embrace it. And what does that look like? That can look like self-medicating. Okay, and how does one self-medicate? Drugs, alcohol, which I know is a form of a drug, but I'm going to make it separate. Alcohol. It could be food. Sex, definitely. Anger, lashing out at someone else. Who hasn't been the recipient of that one? Where it's like, I ain't do anything, I just said hi. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
There are ways in which folks cover it over. I have a friend who has a daughter who lost a loved one. And so her response is she's going to smoke weed every day and not deal with how she's feeling. Now, the bad thing about that is the sadness hasn't gone away. The feelings hasn't gone away. It's still there. And what happens is it builds momentum. And then at some point, what happens? You explode. For no reason. Just because someone said hi. So we have to embrace it. That's our first thing. Line up those problems and confront them. They're not the boss of you. You're the boss of them. And we can all manage this. We can all go through them. They came here. They didn't come to stay. You can move through it. But the thing is, the key is you have to move through it. You can't go above it, below it, around it. You got to move through it. Because what's there is something juicy and delicious that's going to embrace and uplift your life. Because there's a message in there somewhere. Just like I always say, there's a pony in there somewhere. And so in that, it's like, okay, I'm going to find the pony because it's in there. But you got to dive in. Now, one of the things, if you can't pinpoint what's going on, what's wrong, what can you do? Because sometimes, you're like, I'm sad, I don't know why. You can do stream of consciousness writing for 5 minutes, just writing about what it is. And that act of writing, and you have to write it. not type it, because I know some of us are typers and texters and all that, but you have to write. There's something that's very healing about writing. And so what that does is it gets you in touch with you. Because we live so much externally, and I feel that it's even more because one of the things COVID allowed us to go within. You know, I got to spend a whole lot of time with me. I live alone. You know, there was a whole lot of me. There was 24 hours of me. But now, as things are opening up, you're out in the world more, at least I'm out in the world more, and you can get detached from how you're really feeling. So doing that journaling, meditate. We talk about meditation. Do some yoga. I know I had a friend that said he tried some yoga. He's like, yeah, I'm not quite there yet. It's like, yeah, I got to limber up a little bit. Another way we can love ourselves through sadness is to cry. And Nancy said, you know, crying. Now, crying is very healing. Why? I was curious as to why. Well, your tears contain an endorphin that helps reduce pain and improve mood. That's amazing, right? I didn't know that, you know, in a little tear. Crying also has a relaxation response. Because you hear people say, I cried myself to sleep. So there's something, you know, it's in that release. And it just allows you to just relax. Your body just relaxes. So it's okay to cry. It saddens me that we live in a society, and I'm hoping that it shifted, but I know when I was growing up that it wasn't okay for boys to cry. Right. You know, be a man. Well, I think you're being more of a man if you allow your emotions to come out, if you allow yourself to cry, if you allow yourself to release. Because who hasn't felt a little better after a good cry? Now, you may not look that cute, but you definitely feel better. Another way of loving yourself through sadness is finding something to laugh about, something to uplift, that's uplifting. Laughter is so healing. I know we've talked about laughter before. I know, for instance, Phyllis will watch Golden Girls. You know, and I actually, you know, Frasier sometimes, you know, it works for me. But it's something that just makes you laugh. And that's a good way to go to bed, laughing, because after you're seeing some, you know, you might have watched some, like, horrible movie, like Silence of the Lamb or something, and you're like, okay, That reminds me of, like, I had a friend, and I was like, oh, you have to watch this movie, this is great. And afterwards, he said, I think I need to watch a cartoon now. So, love yourself enough to watch something uplifting or read something. For those of you who like to read something uplifting, something inspiring. The next way to love yourself through sadness is to move that body. Exercise. Yes, the E word. Not always the most fun, but there's something in it that when you get your body moving, you start feeling better. I remember a situation, this was when I was living in California. I had my car radio stolen twice. Oh. So my solution was, I'm going to get a pull-out radio. So got the pull-out radio, things were great. So I go into work one day, you know, I pull my radio out, I go into work, put my radio down, you know, go about my business. I come back to my desk one day, radio gone. Oh. So, I'm radio's gone because I thought I had a surefire way of keeping my radio. I'm also sad because it's somebody I work with.
Mm.
And so now I'm not feeling safe. I'm not, I'm like, and the crazy thing is they didn't take my handbag. My handbag was right next to my radio. They just took the radio. Thank you. I'm very grateful for that. There's always something to be grateful for. See, I found the pony.
It's on that
Yes.
pony.
And so what I decided to do, I said, because at that time I was working out a lot. And so I went to the gym. I said, I have to go to the gym. I just have to go. Because I need to feel better. And I knew that that would help me feel better. And it did. So exercise, move that body. The next way to love ourselves through sadness is to reach out to your support network, your support system. Everyone needs a support system. I don't care if it's one person. That person that's going to be there for you no matter what. That person that is going to love you and lift you up no matter what it is that you're going through. We need that. What some of us have a tendency of doing when we're feeling sad is to isolate. That is like the most counterproductive thing that one can do. Now, yes, there are those times where it's like, I just need to be by myself. Yes, that's fine. But to isolate, meaning you don't answer your phone, you don't answer your text, you're not going out, you're just in your misery. And then to make it worse, what happens? Because this is something I would do. I've had a breakup. What do? But play sad music. Okay, so let's play some sad music. Now, what do you think happened? Did I feel better after the sad music?
No.
No. I felt worse. So now I'm in my house alone, feeling very, very sad.
Lots of tears.
Lots of tears. Because the song, what's it making me do but cry more?
Yeah.
And in this case, it's adding to my grief. It's not lifting me up. It's not cleansing because I keep pouring more and more and more of the sadness in there because I got to listen to yet another love song or listen to that same one on the loop. Okay? Because you just got to feel bad. But you don't. You can move through it. So don't isolate. Now, I want to just talk a little bit about being the support system. When you're in that place of supporting someone, support them in the way that they want to be supported, not in the way you feel they should be supported. Because they're not always the same thing. Okay? So understand that person and don't try to fix it. There are those of us, I know the answer. Because I went through this very same thing and this is what I did. Well, that's great. That's wonderful. If they ask you how to fix it, then share. But if they don't, no need to share. It's you just be there for them. Because this is about them, it's not about you. So support them. So another way of loving oneself through sadness is by reframing thoughts. And what do I mean by that? Oftentimes when we're sad, we become the victim. We become, we start thinking the worst of ourselves. Like for instance, let's say you've had a breakup. Because I think everyone's experienced a breakup at some point in their life. Yes. I'm looking at the folks on screen and Zoom, and I would say that's a yes. And the thought might come up that I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. I'll never find love. Now, do you feel like those kind of comments are lifting you up or pulling you down? They're pulling you down. Keeping you in that low vibrational place. And so reframing your thought would be like looking at that thought and like, is that the truth? And if the answer is no, then speak the truth. So I'm not lovable could be simply, I'm lovable. I'm not worthy, it can be simply, I'm worthy. So reframe your thoughts. But in the reframing, you have to be present. And that's one of the things that is running through all of these, that thread that's running through all of this is that you have to be present. You can't be off somewhere like in its days, and that's why when we self-medicate, it doesn't work because you're not present, you're not dealing with what it is that's going on for you. Another way, and this is the last way I'm going to talk about in regards to loving ourselves through sadness, is to spend some time in nature. Mm-hmm. And when you're in nature, using all 5 of your senses, because yes, you do have 5 senses. It's not just our eyes, because a lot of times, we're looking at things, but there are those other senses. What are you hearing? What does it even taste like? Now, I know you're not probably going around licking a tree or eating dirt, but, you can, your smell and your taste are connected, so you can kind of imagine what it tastes like. And so just embracing that, and what it allows you to do is to let go. It allows you to see the awe that's out there. For me, it's like being on the ocean when you're like at the water. It's just magnificent because it's like inlets and it's like, oh my God, look how amazing this is. And so we're talking about loving ourselves through sadness. And as we love ourselves through sadness, what happens? Our vibration lifts. Because is love a high vibration or a low vibration? Love is a high vibration, and it's one of the highest vibrations. And so if you can just allow yourself to love yourself, as Sam Smith says, a little bit more, that vibration is just going to keep picking up, and pretty soon you're going to be feeling pretty good. And life is going to look a whole lot better. And since we're energy and we're vibrational beings, good things are going to come to you because we vibrate, right? And whatever we're vibrating is what we get more of. And so if we're vibrating that sadness, guess what we get? Ooh, more sadness. If we're vibrating that love, we get more love. And more reasons to love and more things to love. So, today, our homework is to pick one of these ways that I talked about today, or one of the 50 that Reverend Vaughn talked about, to love yourself a little more. And maybe you have some other ways. But practice loving yourself more. And I want you to practice it every day. Wake up in the morning saying, okay, how am I going to love myself today? And keep doing this. Because what will happen is you'll get it on automatic pilot. And pretty soon, you actually will be loving yourself more. So thank you, and so it is.
And so it is.
Okay. I'm going to do this quick. And then
I want
decide.
the closing song.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's just,
Well,
no, do the announcements.
okay. Just a couple quick announcements. We're trying to create activities for people to join us in. Like last week, we went to the Blue Poppy Festival in Federal Way. And that was a great outing. And so starting, next Sunday, we're going to have a different kind of service. It's one that you can participate in along with, instead of just being talked to. It's a deepening through a chanting of a 5-step prayer, the science of mind treatment that we use. And that's next Sunday. Then starting June 10th, we're going to do the whole series, not on that day, of the Harry Potter movies, which are, there's 8 of them. And so we'll be doing that through the beginning of September, and I'll be sending out all these dates and stuff, so you don't have to take it all in right this moment. And there'll be a discussion afterwards of points that come up that are spiritual, or mind, or life changing. And then on, let's see, June 19th, we're going to have a shout out because we have a bunch of Geminis. So we're going to try, we're wanting to do that every month. So if your birthday's a certain month, which it is a certain month, hopefully, unless you don't have birthdays anymore, let us know so we can do a shout out. And then the 25th, we're going to make a trip to the zoo. And then the 26th, if you've joined the book club, which we have going on right now, we will be gathering after the service here at the center, or you can do it by Zoom. And we'll have a little bite to eat and then discuss the book. So that's what's coming up. And I'm going to send this stuff out so you won't have to put this all in your head right at the moment. And now, I just want to thank everybody for being here, and we're going to close. So thank you for being here on Facebook. So we're going to play a song.